This is my fourth time recording this. Anyway, let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to teach you today how to do a technique called UV unwrapping. And we never actually did this in school, but I think it's important enough to the point where uh, you need to learn it. And the next year, I've made it so that this will one of the first things we'll cover. So So we have this cube and we're gonna give it, I've already done it, but we're gonna give it a material. And this material is the default diffuse, but when we turn to the node editor, right, it'll show diffuse. But the node editor is different from this um, this control panel uh, in the sense that it's a lot more free and it gives you a lot more control. So there's a lot of things that you can do in the node editor that you can't do in the default control panel. So the great thing is though that it works pretty much the same as the 3D view. For example, G to grab, I can grab here, right? And if I want to add something, I'll just I'll just press Shift A, and I want to add a texture, an image texture. Okay, so UV unwrapping basically means taking a 2D image and projecting it into a 3D object. So we're finding the most, in this case, we're using the uh, simplest 3D object possible, the cube. And I've added an image texture, and nothing will happen until you plug it in, color to color. The color output goes into the diffuse input. Okay, so now you see it's all pink, and it's supposed to be pink. And if you render it, if I turn this to rendered mode, and you see I have a background already that lights up my scene for me. I'll teach you how to do that in a bit, but not now, but later. But you see it's pink, and it's supposed to be pink. Pink just means that there's an image texture node, but there isn't a image. Like there's no actual image. So we're gonna give it an image. So we're gonna press open and UV unwrapping, and I'm going to use this image. Okay. And it lags. Okay, so this image is what we might call a seamless image, in a sense that if you take it in Photoshop, and I've already done this already, but if you duplicate it, Photoshop, and you don't have to use Photoshop. I like Photoshop because it's pretty flexible, it's pretty robust. But you can use alternatives like GIMP or Paint.net. They're both free. So here's what I mean by having a seamless image. So I have that texture, and if I duplicate the texture and then I move it below it, you see that it actually joins perfectly. Okay, so I can keep tiling this. Tiling is a good word for it. So if I do that, if I duplicate that, okay, and then move it next to each other, you see that it tiles perfectly, and that's what we call a seamless texture. And you can literally Google this. Just Google seamless texture, a seamless brick texture, or whatever, and you'll get it. But and we have it here. We have the texture here, but thing is, it's not showing up here. It's only blue. And there's texture mode. By default it's solid, but I want it to be in texture. But nothing's happening. And the reason why nothing's happening, and if you render it, if you go into render viewport, it's still this image is not being projected on it. It's only grabbing an approximation of that color. So so it has. We know that it has that image. So if I delete that node, right, If I delete that image node, then it becomes white. If I undo that, we know that it does something, right? So this image texture has been assigned to this cube, but it's not. It hasn't been mapped yet, so it doesn't know where to apply, how to how to project it would be a good word. So I'm gonna open a new panel, and then I'm gonna go to the UV image editor, and I'm gonna open that image that I just had. Okay, so this is what the image looks like. Let's get out of viewport first. Shift Z is the shortcut, so render viewport, not render viewport. I'm gonna press Tab to go into edit mode, and I'm gonna press U for unwrap, and I'm gonna unwrap. Okay, and if we go to the texture viewport, you see that, ta-da, it's mapped, and you see it's actually seamless. It follows on, and if I take this, okay, and I select all of it, and I scale it, okay, this texture is gonna repeat. Okay, it's gonna repeat infinitely, because what it automatically does is it repeats the texture. It repeats the image. And what it's done here is that it's taken all these faces. Okay, I'm in face selecting mode. It's taken all these faces and then uh, crushed, not crushed, but they flattened it and they stuck it on this area, this 2D plane. Okay, so yeah, there you go. So, and if I just select one of these, you see that I can manipulate how the image is being mapped. Okay, so if I put it here like this, it'll stretch it out more because it's less of it is being covered, so more it has to stretch in order to cover the whole cube. Okay, if I move these, okay, the mesh, the original model itself will not change. Yeah, that it will not. Whatever I do here will not modify here. It'll just modify how it's mapped. Okay, so there we have a seamless image. We have a textured image. But what if I wanted to do something slightly more complicated and say we wanted to make a dice? Okay, so dice with numbered sides, right? So you realize that with the seamless image, there's another problem that comes with the seamless image, is that if we scale it up, you'll see that, by the way, I've only selected this face, so the only thing I've scaled up is the face on top. By the way, if you notice that this face, when you scale it up, or when you scale it down rather, and it repeats, especially from far away, you notice that there's a pattern. There's a pattern that appears on the. It makes it very obvious that there's a pattern, and it makes it very obvious that it's a seamless texture. So, and a lot of times that's really disturbing. So we don't use it very often. We don't use seamless textures very often. We just use it as a shortcut, usually for stuff like bricks or the floor or something like that. Yeah. We wouldn't use it for something like the seamless textures. We wouldn't use for something like the human skin or something like yeah, anything that requires variation we won't use a seamless texture. But anyways, here's how to make a dice.